Hey everyone, I never thought I'd be writing something like this, but life has a way of throwing curveballs when you least expect it. I'm 44 years old, and they have two twin sons who are 15 years old. We've been married for 18 years, and up until recently, I thought we had a pretty solid marriage. I run a trading company that's done well for us, while my wife runs a small business her parents bought for her. Life was stable, if not perfect. About a month ago, I started feeling unwell. I figured it was just stress from work, but my symptoms got worse. I kept putting off going to the doctor thinking it was nothing serious, but eventually, I couldn't ignore it anymore. So I went in for a checkup. After a series of tests, my doctor sat me down and gave me the worst news imaginable. I have malignant cancer. They said I might have 6 months to a year left. I was numb. How do you even begin to process something like that? Leaving the hospital, I knew I had to tell my wife. But as I drove home, my mind racing with how to break the news, I saw something that shattered my already fragile world. My wife was standing outside a cafe, kissing another man. It wasn't just a peck on the cheek, it was a deep, passionate kiss. My heart dropped. I felt like I'd been hit by a truck. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. I didn't confront her. Instead, I drove to my brother's work. My brother, an ex-military guy, is the type who never shows much emotion. When I told him about my diagnosis, he just nodded, a solemn look on his face. We reminisced for a while, talking about old times, avoiding the elephant in the room. Then he asked what I was going to do about my wife. I told him what I saw, and he wasn't surprised. He always said she was trouble. He suggested we gather evidence before making any decisions. A kiss was enough for me, but I needed to be sure. So we decided to hire a private investigator. I knew I had to protect my son and make sure that if my wife was cheating, she wouldn't get everything if things went south. Back home, I tried to act normal. It was the hardest thing I've ever done. My wife acted like everything was fine, like she wasn't betraying me behind my back. I felt like I was living in a nightmare. I had to hold myself together for my sons. The PI worked fast. Within a week, I had the proof I needed. Photos of my wife and her lover at his place, at a hotel, and even in our home while I was at work. It was like a punch to the gut, but at least now I knew for sure. I started putting my affairs in order. I revised my will, ensuring that my wife wouldn't get a penny if she was found guilty of adultery. My brother helped me with the legalities, making sure everything was airtight. The thought of my wife living comfortably off my hard work while I was gone made my blood boil. One night I finally decided to confront her. I waited until our sons was out with friends. I showed her the photos. Her face went pale and she stammered, trying to come up with excuses. I didn't want to hear it. I told her about my diagnosis. She cried, saying she was sorry that she never meant to hurt me, but it was too late for apologies. I told her she needed to leave. I couldn't stand to look at her. She begged for another chance, but I was done. I told her I'd be filing for divorce and she should get a lawyer. Her parents came to get her, and she moved out that night. Now I'm sitting here in an empty house, trying to figure out what to do next. My son doesn't know about the cancer yet. I'm trying to muster the courage to tell him, but it's so damn hard. Every day feels like a struggle, but I'm determined to make the most of the time I have left. If you've been through something similar or have any advice, I'd appreciate it. I feel so lost right now. Thanks for reading. So let me give you a bit more context about my life before all this hit the fan. My wife and I met when she was 18, and I was 26. Yeah, there's a bit of an age gap, but we clicked immediately. She was vibrant, full of life, and I was already working my way up in the business world. We got married 2 years later, and soon after, our two sons was born. He's our pride and joy, and I've always tried to give them the best life. Running a trading company isn't easy, but it's been rewarding. I've worked hard to provide for my family, making sure we never wanted for anything. My wife, on the other hand, has always had a passion for fashion. Her parents bought her a small boutique, and she turned it into a thriving business. I was proud of her. It seemed like we had the perfect life. But looking back, there were signs I missed. She started coming home later, saying she was busy with work. There were more business trips that seemed to pop up out of nowhere. I shrugged it off, trusting her completely. After all, she was my wife, the mother of my children. Seeing her kiss another man was like a dagger to the heart. All those late nights and business trips suddenly made sense. I felt like a fool for not seeing it sooner. But now, with the diagnosis hanging over me, I had to focus on what mattered, my son, and making sure he was taken care of. My brother has been a godsend. He's always been the stoic one, the reliable one. When I told him about the cancer, he didn't break down. He just listened, offering his support in his quiet, steadfast way. We reminisced about our childhood, the trouble we used to get into, and it helped take my mind off the crushing reality, even if just for a little while. When I told him about my wife, he wasn't shocked. He'd always had his reservations about her, though he never voiced them too loudly. He suggested hiring a PI to gather evidence, and I agreed. I needed to know for sure. The PI was efficient and thorough. Within a week, I had all the proof I needed. Confronting my wife was harder than I thought it would be. Seeing the look on her face when I showed her the photos, when I told her about the cancer, it was almost too much to bear. She begged for forgiveness, said it was a mistake, but I couldn't let it go. Trust, once broken, is hard to rebuild. So now, here I am, trying to navigate this new, painful reality. I'm trying to stay strong for my sons, but every day is a battle. I want to tell them about cancer, but I'm afraid of how they will react. They are strong children, but anyone cannot cope with this, let alone 15-year-olds. I've started writing letters to him, things I want him to know after I'm gone. It's heartbreaking, but it's the only way I can think of to make sure he knows how much I love him, how proud I am of him. If any of you have been through something similar, I could really use some advice. How do you tell your child that you're dying? How do you hold it together when everything is falling apart? Thanks for listening. I'm back with more to share. Things have taken a turn for the worse, and I feel like my world is crumbling around me. If you've been following my story, you know that I'm battling cancer and dealing with the fallout of my wife's betrayal. It's been a roller coaster, and I'm struggling to keep it all together. My condition has worsened over the past few weeks. I've started feeling weak, and the persistent cough and shortness of breath are getting harder to ignore. My wife has noticed my symptoms, but she hasn't said anything directly. We barely see each other these days, just in the mornings when we wake up and at night when we go to bed. I've been brushing off her concerns, telling her it's just the flu. But deep down, I know it's more than that. I've been trying to manage my symptoms as best as I can. Every breath feels like a struggle, and simple tasks leave me exhausted. I've started losing weight, and my energy levels are at an all-time low. It's a stark reminder of how little time I have left. My children came home from college recently. I needed them to sign some papers, but I didn't want to alarm them with the full extent of what was going on. I certainly didn't want them to know about their mother's affair. When we arrived at the notary's office, my brother was there too. The kids started asking questions, curious about why we were there and what the papers were for. I tried to evade their questions, but they kept pressing. My patience wore thin, and I ended up shouting that I was sick. The room went silent, and I saw the shock on their faces. I explained my diagnosis, that I didn't have much time left. The dialogue continued at a moderate pace, but then they asked, "And Mother?" I didn't know how to respond. I didn't want to tarnish their image of her, but they insisted on knowing the details. So I told them everything. I told them about the affair, about the photos, about how I had been living with this betrayal. Their expressions shifted from shock to anger, and I could see the pain in their eyes. Not long after that, my wife flew to Florida. She said it was for work, but I didn't even ask for details. I checked with her secretary, and there were no scheduled meetings. I knew she was likely with her lover, and the thought made my blood boil. She didn't even bother to hide her lies anymore. In my eyes, she had turned into someone unrecognizable, a treacherous bitch who didn't care about the damage she was causing. I wrote in my journal that even if she went on vacation with her lover, it wouldn't last long. Soon, she'd learn what real life is. It was impressive how blatantly she lied, how she acted as if everything was normal. But I wasn't going to let her get away with it. I was determined to protect my son and ensure she didn't benefit from my hard work. A family holiday was coming up, and the whole family, except my wife, decided to go. It was a chance for us to be together, to make some memories before things got worse. But of course, everyone was concerned about my condition. The kids insisted that I needed treatment, that I should be doing more to fight the cancer. I assured them that I was taking care of my health. I went to the doctor every week, underwent various procedures, and followed the treatment plan. But I could see the worry in their eyes, the fear that they were going to lose me. It was heartbreaking. but I tried to stay strong for them. We spent the holiday trying to enjoy each other's company, but there was a constant undercurrent of tension. My brother and sister were supportive, but I could see the strain this was putting on them too. We reminisced about old times, shared laughs, and tried to make the most of our time together. Balancing normalcy and preparation was a delicate act. On the one hand, I wanted to ensure that my son had as normal a life as possible. On the other hand, I had to prepare him for the inevitable. We started working on small projects together, like building a treehouse in the backyard and taking up hobbies like fishing and painting. It was our way of making memories and spending quality time together. Each project, each moment spent together, was a precious gift. Despite everything, I tried to focus on the positive. I spent as much time as I could with my son, creating new memories and enjoying our time together. At work, I began delegating responsibilities to my team, preparing them for the day when I wouldn't be there. My business was my legacy, and I wanted to make sure it continued to thrive. My brother and I grew closer during this time. He was my rock, providing both emotional and practical support. We reminisced about our childhood, shared laughs, and sometimes tears. My sister, though not as present, also offered her support in her way. She visited often, bringing meals and helping out around the house. It was comforting to know I had a support system in place, not just for me, but for my son as well. Despite my efforts to keep things normal, there were challenges. The treatments, though meant to prolong my life, were harsh and took a toll on my body. Some days I felt too weak to get out of bed, but I pushed through for my son's sake. I wanted him to see that I was fighting, that I wasn't giving up. His presence was a constant source of strength and motivation. As my health declined, I started thinking more about the future. I wrote letters to my son, something he could hold on to after I was gone. I wanted him to know how much I loved him, to give him advice for the years ahead, and to reassure him that I would always be with him in spirit. These letters were my way of staying connected, even when I couldn't be there physically. In my conversations with my wife, I made it clear that our marriage was over, but we needed to co-parent for our son's sake. We worked out a schedule for her visits, ensuring our son could maintain a relationship with her. It was awkward at first, but we managed to keep things civil. She tried to make amends, to show she was still a good mother, but the trust was gone. I focused on what was best for our son, keeping my emotions in check during our interactions. Through it all, I found moments of peace. Whether it was watching the sunset with my son, having a quiet cup of coffee in the morning, or enjoying a family dinner, I cherished these small moments. They were a reminder of what was truly important. My brother and I continued our heart-to-heart talks. My sister's visits brought warmth to our home, and my son's laughter was a constant source of joy. Life became a series of moments to be savored, each one precious in its own way. I held on to these moments, finding strength in them as I faced the challenges ahead. My journey was far from over, but I was determined to make every day count, for my son, for myself, and for the legacy I would leave behind. I'm back with more to share. If you've been following my story, you know it's been one hell of a ride. Battling cancer and dealing with my wife's betrayal has pushed me to my limits. But life keeps going, and so do I. Here's what's been happening lately. I told my wife everything I knew about her affairs. I know, it must have been foolish. I should have kept it all a secret, gathered more evidence, played it smart. But I couldn't. Maybe a part of me wanted to see what she would do when she realized there was no one else to lie to, no more games to play. So one evening, when our son was out, I sat her down and laid it all out. "You think I don't know, don't you?" I began, trying to keep my voice steady. Her eyes widened, but she didn't interrupt. "I know about the affair. I know about all the lies. I've seen the photos, and I've heard the excuses. It's over." Her face went pale and she stammered, trying to come up with some kind of response. I can explain." "Explain what?" I cut her off. "Explain how you've been cheating on me while I'm dying? Explain why you've turned our lives into a lie?" She started crying, but I wasn't moved. "Please, I'm sorry. It was a mistake." "A mistake?" I laughed bitterly. "A mistake is forgetting to pick up milk on the way home. This was a choice. Your choice." She kept crying, but I was done. I got up and walked away, leaving her to deal with her tears alone. I decided to move to another house. I know I should have fought for our home, but I couldn't stand the thought of sharing it with her anymore. The memories, the lies, the betrayal. It was all too much. Plus, I didn't want to deal with her tantrums. She had started acting hysterical, trying to manipulate me with her tears and apologies. I couldn't take it anymore. I found a small place not too far from my old home. It wasn't much, but it was mine. It was a place where I could breathe without the weight of her presence suffocating me. Moving out was a hassle, but it was worth it. The silence in my new home was comforting, even if it was a bit lonely. Despite my efforts to keep everything normal, my condition worsened. The treatment, although intended to prolong my life, was harsh and took a toll on my body. I felt weak all the time. The coughs became more frequent, deeper, and more painful. Simple tasks like walking up the stairs left me breathless. I lost weight, my skin became pale and thin, and the pain was constant. Some days I could barely get out of bed. My wife noticed the symptoms, of course. How could she not? But she didn't say anything directly. Maybe she was too consumed by her own guilt, or maybe she just didn't care. We rarely saw each other, only in passing when we woke up or went to bed. I kept brushing off her concern, telling her it was just the flu, but we both knew the truth. My children stopped responding to her. She tried to make amends, reaching out to them with apologies and excuses, but it was too late. They saw through her lies and wanted nothing to do with her. I could see how much it hurt them, but they were strong. They had each other, and they had me. That was enough. One day her lover came to see me. He was just 27 years old, a kid compared to me. He stood at my door, nervously shifting from foot to foot. "I need to talk to you," he said. I crossed my arms and stared at him. "What do you want?" I love her," he began, but before he could finish, I closed the door in his face. I didn't want to hear it. I didn't care. He knocked again, but I didn't open it. I wasn't interested in his excuses or his declarations of love. He was nothing to me, just another reminder of how my wife had destroyed our life. Moving into my new place was a challenge, especially with my worsening condition. But it was a necessary step. I needed a fresh start, a place where I could find some peace in my final days. My brother helped me with the move, making sure everything was in order. He's been my rock through all of this, steady and unwavering. Every day is a struggle. The pain, the weakness, the breathlessness, it's all getting worse. But I'm determined to keep fighting, to make the most of the time I have left. I've started writing letters to my son, things I want him to know after I'm gone. It's heartbreaking, but it's the only way I can think of to make sure he knows how much I love him, how proud I am of him. I'm trying to stay positive, to focus on the good moments. I spend as much time as I can with my son, creating new memories. We go for walks, watch movies, talk about everything and nothing. I want him to remember the good times, not the pain and the struggle. My wife continues to reach out, trying to make amends, but I'm done. I've moved on, focusing on what's important. My son, my health, and the time I have left. She's a part of our past, but she has no place in our future. Since my diagnosis, I've found solace in keeping myself busy. One of the ways I've been doing that is by diving headfirst into sports. I started going to the gym regularly, working out and running. It's been a great way to clear my mind and keep my body as strong as possible, even if my condition continues to worsen. There's something about pushing through the physical pain that helps me deal with the emotional turmoil. I've also started traveling more around the country. I've been to places I've always wanted to visit but never had the time for. Cities like New York, San Francisco, Chicago, and New Orleans. Each place had its own charm, its own way of helping me forget, if only for a little while, the storm raging inside me. These trips have become my escape, my way of finding beauty and joy in the little time I have left. During these travels, I've met so many amazing people and seen incredible sights. The vibrant energy of Times Square, the Golden Gate Bridge shrouded in fog, the bustling streets of Chicago, and the soulful music of New Orleans. Each experience has been a reminder that life, despite its hardships, still has so much to offer. Of course, all this traveling meant I had to take some time off work. When I finally returned, I noticed something was off. My colleagues were giving me strange looks, whispering behind my back. I didn't like it at all. It felt like I was walking into a room full of strangers instead of the team I had known for years. I pulled one of my trusted colleagues aside and asked what was going on. He hesitated at first, but then he told me that my wife had been spreading rumors that I was cheating on her. I couldn't help but laugh at the absurdity of it. Me, the one who had been betrayed, was now being painted as the villain. I didn't waste any time. I gathered all the evidence I had of her betrayal photos, messages, everything the private investigator had collected, and brought it to the office. I called a meeting with my team and laid it all out. I explained the situation, showed them the proof, and watched as their expressions changed from suspicion to shock and then to sympathy. It was a satisfying moment, seeing the truth come to light and knowing that I wasn't alone in this. I knew that facing my wife in court was inevitable, even though I dreaded it. The legal battle was long and exhausting. My lawyer and I worked tirelessly to ensure that she wouldn't get a penny more than she deserved. We presented the evidence of her infidelity, her lies, and the way she had tried to manipulate the situation to her advantage. I have to admit, there was a part of me that was eager to see her face when she realized she wasn't getting anything. She walked into the courtroom with an air of confidence, probably thinking she could still play the victim card. But as the evidence was presented, her expression changed. The confidence drained from her face, replaced by a mix of shock, anger, and fear. The court proceedings were grueling. Her lawyer tried to paint me as the neglectful husband who drove her into the arms of another man. But the evidence was irrefutable. The judge saw through her lies and manipulation. My wife's attempts to twist the narrative fell flat, and it was clear that her betrayal was the root of our marriage's collapse. When the judge finally ruled in my favor, it felt like a weight had been lifted off my shoulders. She was awarded the bare minimum, and her lover didn't get a cent of my hard-earned money. Seeing her reaction was a mix of satisfaction and sorrow. I never wanted things to end this way, but I knew it was necessary. Looking back, it's hard to believe how much has happened in such a short time. From the moment I received my diagnosis to the confrontation with my wife, to the grueling court battle, it's been a whirlwind. But through it all, I found strength I didn't know I had. I found new interests, met incredible people, and experienced things I never thought I would. Despite the chaos, I found moments of peace. My relationship with my son has grown stronger. We spend as much time together as we can, making memories that I hope will last him a lifetime. Whether we're playing sports, watching movies, or just talking, these moments are precious to me. My brother has been a constant source of support. He's been there through the darkest times, helping me move, supporting me in court, and just being a shoulder to lean on. His strength and steadiness have been a lifeline. And even though my wife's betrayal still stings, I've found a way to move past it. I've stopped responding to her attempts to make amends. Her excuses mean nothing to me now. I've built a new life, one that's focused on the time I have left and the people who truly matter. Every day is still a struggle, but I'm determined to make the most of the time I have left. I'm focusing on my health, on my son, and on finding joy in the little things. Life has thrown a lot at me, but I'm still standing. I'm still fighting. Thank you all for listening. If you've been through something similar or have any advice, I'd appreciate it. It's been a tough journey, but I'm doing my best to keep moving forward. It's been 4 months since my last update, and as hard as it is to believe, my time is running out. I'm still here, still fighting, but I can feel the end approaching. There's a strange peace that comes with that realization, a kind of acceptance. I'm generally fine, but moving around has become incredibly difficult. The cancer has taken its toll, and I've had to stop exercising and traveling. It's frustrating because those were the things that kept me sane, kept me feeling alive. Now most days, I'm confined to my home, my world shrinking with each passing day. My condition has worsened significantly. The weakness is overwhelming. Some days I can barely get out of bed. The pain is constant, a dull ache that never quite goes away, punctuated by sharp bursts that take my breath away. I've lost a lot of weight, and my energy levels are at an all-time low. Breathing is a struggle. It feels like I'm drowning in air. My doctors have adjusted my medications to help manage the pain, but there's only so much they can do. I miss the gym, the feeling of my muscles straining, the rush of endorphins after a good run. I miss traveling, seeing new places, meeting new people. But I'm trying to focus on the positive, on the time I have left with my son and the people who matter most to me. A few weeks ago, my wife called our children asking for money. They told me they didn't give her anything, but I can't help but worry that over time, they might soften towards her. Time has a way of healing even the deepest wounds, and I fear they might start to empathize with her. But for now, knowing that she's hit rock bottom gives me a twisted sense of satisfaction. She's paid the price for her infidelity, and it's not just about the money. All our relatives have turned away from her. She's isolated, and every bridge she burned has left her stranded. There's a cruel justice in that, and I can't help but be happy about it. She made her bed, and now she has to lie in it. On the brighter side, my business has started to bring in good money. It's a strange feeling, knowing that it's thriving even as I'm fading. I've worked hard to ensure its success, and seeing it do well is a bittersweet victory. I've started the process of handing over the reins to my team, ensuring that they're prepared to carry on without me. It's comforting to know that my legacy will live on, that the company I built will continue to thrive. I'm a little worried about my sons. It's been hard for them to process their mother's betrayal. They've been strong, but I can see the hurt in their eyes, the confusion, and the pain. They've lost their mother in more ways than one, and that's a wound that won't heal easily. I try to be there for them, to support them, and guide them, but I know it's not enough. They need more than I can give them now. I worry about what will happen after I'm gone. Will they be able to move on? Will they find it in their hearts to forgive her one day? I don't have the answers, and that uncertainty weighs heavily on me. I can only hope that they'll find their own paths, that they'll be stronger for having gone through this. Looking back, I can't help but reflect on the choices I made. Perhaps in my youth, I didn't think with my head, but with something else. That's why I let this woman into my life, why I didn't see the warning signs, why I ignored the red flags. It's easy to look back and see all the mistakes, to wonder what might have been if I'd chosen differently. But this is life. Everyone makes mistakes. We learn, we grow, and we move on. I've made peace with my choices, with the life I've lived. I've had my share of joy and sorrow, of triumphs and defeats. And in the end, it's the journey that matters, the people we touch, the memories we create. To those of you reading this, I want to say thank you. Thank you for listening, for your support, for your advice. It's been a tough journey, but knowing that I'm not alone has made it a little easier. Life is short, and it's full of unexpected twists and turns. We can't control everything that happens to us, but we can control how we respond. We can choose to face our challenges with courage and dignity, to find joy in the little things, to love and be loved. As I sit here, reflecting on everything that's happened, I realize how important it is to cherish the moments we have. Life is fragile and unpredictable, and it's the people we love that give it meaning. My son, my brother, my friends, they are my strength, my reason to keep fighting. I've learned that forgiveness isn't about letting someone off the hook. It's about freeing yourself from the burden of anger and resentment. I don't know if I'll ever fully forgive my wife, but I'm trying to let go of the bitterness. It's not for her sake, but for mine and my son's. To anyone out there who might be going through something similar, I want you to know that you're not alone. Life can be incredibly tough, but there's always hope. Surround yourself with people who love and support you. Find your own strength, and don't be afraid to lean on others when you need to. This journey has taught me so much about resilience, about the power of love and forgiveness, and about the importance of living each day to the fullest. I don't know what the future holds, but I'm determined to face it with courage and grace. Thank you all for being a part of my story. Your support has meant more to me than words can express. Keep fighting, keep loving, and never take a single day for granted. As my time draws to a close, I find comfort in the knowledge that I've done everything I could to protect my son, to secure my legacy, and to make peace with my past. Life may not have turned out the way I planned, but it's been a journey worth taking. To my sons, if you ever read this, know that I love you more than anything. You are my greatest achievement, my greatest joy. Be strong, be kind, and never forget that you are loved. Goodbye for now, and thank you for everything. Take care, everyone.